Writing is a fundamental form of communication that has been a part of human society since the days of hunters and gatherers. It's a medium we use to share thoughts and ideas and emotions and experiences, and it has changed the course of history so many times and in so many ways. And while I may not have the impact of Rachel Carson's Silent Spring or George Orwell's 1984, I want to be able to reach a nation of readers through words and make a difference, no matter if it's as small as riding my bike with no handlebars. This is the refrain from the song Handlebars, written by Jamie Laurie, and it expresses how people have the capability to do something as simple as ride a bike with no handlebars to things that are more complex, such as, quote, keep rhythm with no metronome, lead a nation with a microphone, or split the atom of a molecule. With this limitless thinking applied to literature, the possibilities are endless, and it's part of what has gotten me to step out of my comfort zone and accomplish things I hadn't even considered myself capable of accomplishing. Good evening, I am Ira Yusuf, and this year in ISM I have chosen to study creative writing under the mentorship of Professor John Tate. First, I want to establish a little bit about me. I am the president of Diversity Club. I volunteer a lot, primarily through the volunteering program at Frisco Public Library, and I'm also looking into a lot of animal shelters and, of course, the Frisco resale store. I am also a major part of the Teen Writers Club, which also goes hand in hand with what I'm studying in ISM this year, in that it helps me practice writing and it helps me find connections with other writers that are my peers, as well as authors who come and talk to our group. As far as creativity goes, I'm inclined to express myself through ways more than writing, which is part of a reason why I wanted to do creative writing this year, since I love being able to express myself in many different ways. And those include graphic design. I am employed as a graphic designer in association with Design Crowd, and it makes it really easy to balance and earn money while you have school, since it's since you are able to submit clients' requests through the website. I am also a major fan of piano, as you can see in this picture. I love music and I love writing music, which I guess you can consider creative writing in a sort of way. I also enjoy learning, which is one of the main reasons why I took ISM, since I wanted to increase my knowledge of a subject that I was really passionate about. I am currently learning Russian on my own, and in the summer I plan to continue this with a private tutor, as well as increase my knowledge in computer science. Next, I want to talk about why I chose to become involved in ISM. I was interested in the program when I kept hearing all these stories about the different people who were involved in the program and all the things that they have accomplished and how varied it was, and how you could choose whatever topic really interested in you. And it's this kind of structure that really that drew my attention to the class, since I've never really been a part of a program that allowed you to do things based on your interest. And I was aware that you had the opportunity to go out and meet professionals and make connections and make all these differences that really play a part into who you are and in your future career. And I really wanted to use that opportunity to my advantage and become a part of ISM. The reason I chose creative writing was mainly because I had a desire to be an author for a long time, and I wanted to change the world, as I said, in a way perhaps not as Rachel Carson's Silent Spring or George Orwell's 1984, but a way that some people would be able to feel a change of heart or be able to think a different way through words on a page that I wrote. Writing has played a major role in my life, and I want a writing that I have created to play a major role into someone else's life as well. Next, I want to talk about the research that I have done in my study of literature as well as through interviews. I conducted a research on the career outlook for creative writing, which I was already previously aware wasn't that great in terms of if you are an author, you earn a certain amount of money. It really depends on how you establish yourself as an author and if your novels are popular and if the market is inclined to what you write. However, even though the career outlook for creative writing isn't as great in terms of how much you earn and stability, there is a lot of proliferation for creative writing in other fields. You are able to use skills in technical writing and journalism and article writing online and blogging and all those things. And you're able to find a way to improve your eloquency and communication and such. Through my research assessments, I learned that in communicating with literary agents, especially in this day and age, since you have the opportunity to send queries and such through email, and it's really easy to get in touch with a literary agent, that you have to make sure that a manuscript that you send in to a literary agency is absolutely polished, and you have to make sure that you give the manuscript to your peers and that you edit it yourself and make sure that it is exactly how you would want it to be published online or through traditional publishing, however your platform preference is, so that if you are proud of your work, then chances are the literary agent will be interested. Furthermore, I learned that you have to ensure that you know who your audience is and how you can connect to your audience. As if you have a certain age group, you have to make sure that you use terms that they may be familiar with and make references or allusions that you know that they will understand if you want your audience to be able to understand what you're writing about or what the significance of a certain reference is. In research for a novel that you may write, you have to ensure that the research is sufficient, especially if it's a novel on a topic that you are not too familiar with. For example, I am currently working on a novel that involves a character who works as an FBI agent, so I have to ensure that I research into the career of an FBI agent, even if it's not 100% accurate, that it's accurate enough to where people focus on the novel and not the inaccuracies of a job, and also that I don't put too many details of the career itself into the novel so that it overshadows the actual plot line. I also learned that you have to write for yourself, and even though the market is very demanding and how your income is based on if the market likes your work or not, you have to make sure that you write for yourself and not for the market. Even though you want to gain an audience, if the writing doesn't come from your heart, it won't really be a representation of who you are as an author, and most likely it won't be your best work since it's not something that you really want to write about, or it's something that you were writing just to impress a certain audience. I also learned that you have to make sure that you're able to get your viewpoint across, especially since narrators are considered unreliable, since no one can really have a factual statement of what reality is. So you have to convince your audience that this is the reality that you write about in a piece of work. You have to ensure that you know everything about your characters in developing your characters, and that you establish a backstory and provide reasons and motives for why they may do something or why they act a certain way or why their personality is a certain way. You have to ensure that you don't involve any writing tics in your work, and this is one of the things that you have to look for before you send in a manuscript. Writing tics are little nuances that you can find often throughout a piece of work. such as words that can be related to words that we use in speech, such as or like, or and it can be seen as repetitive and a little annoying, so you have to make sure that you watch out for those words and remove them, or if they're part of your style, make sure that they're not in the writing too often. Another major part of my research was about writing and its involvement in schools, and I learned that a lot of curriculums and school districts are moving towards more expository writing, and they're wanting to focus on getting their students prepared for the STAR test, which of course focuses on expository writing and the essays and such, and how a lot of teachers are making an appeal to the school districts to have more creative writing and allow students to understand concepts but allow themselves to express their creativity. Through my interviews, I learned that you have to keep persevering. Author Beth Rebus, who wrote Across the Universe, was the first person I interviewed, and I learned that she had gotten rejected over 400 times before she actually published a successful novel. And seeing how successful she has become now, even if she's not as popular as the Harry Potter series, it reminds me that if I want to publish a novel, I have to continue to persevere and take from previous works that haven't been successful and continue to improve what I'm writing. Through Lisa Buber, I learned that you have to find your platform for writing and establish whether you want to publish with a traditional publishing company or if you want to publish online, and how publishing online can be more effective towards reaching certain younger audiences, and how publishing offline can have the opposite effect. Through John Baker and Anne Balaban, I learned that creative writing in technical writing is also something that plays a role in intertwines with each other. If you have a good skill in creative writing, then you are able to clearly convey the instructions that you want to in technical writing, people who write manuals and instructions and such. In my interview with John Tate, I learned about how it can be useful to have a career, or at least it's not as distracting as many authors say that having a career is, and how it can help balance out the times that you are in a series of writing, or it can also help give you inspiration for your writing. And John Tate was actually the person that I chose to be my mentor, and most of my work that I conducted with John Tate was at UNT when I attended the creative writing workshops. What I was able to find is that the undergrad and graduate classes were very interactive and involved with each other, and it was very different from how I expected it to be. Not only did it help me gain an idea of what a college structured class would be like, but it also helped inspire me on what I wanted to do for my original work, and especially my final product. We worked together on the curriculum proposal that I have developed for my original work, and my original work was an initial plan of researching into publishing agencies. However, I decided that I wanted to do something that affected the community on a local level more, and thus I wrote a thesis paper on a restructuring of the school district curriculum of English and language arts in middle schools for FISD. And I wrote an outline of this proposal and followed it with a thesis to explain why I felt that each point on the proposal was necessary, and what evidence I had collected and what research I had collected to back up that assertion. And the research that I had collected was my case study of Neudorf High School, the observation of schools in the Frisco Independent School District, as well as the analysis of the current curriculum. My case study at New Dorp High School in Staten Island focused on Principal Deidre DeAngelis' observations of her English classes at her high school, and she wanted to pinpoint the reason that her students were doing so poorly on the English and language arts tests. And what she found out was that with the current curriculum, students were having a difficult time understanding certain concepts, but that they were a lot more engaged when presented with a curriculum that offered a lot more loose structure and allowed them to explore different forms of writing and different ideas rather than focusing on the requirements of a prompt. Through my observations at Stafford Middle School and Western Middle School, as well as Cobb Middle School, which is an observation I've conducted more recently, I was able to interview with students, and what I learned is that many of them prefer a structured feel and they want to have that instruction, but they are a lot more interested when they are given the opportunity to express individual ideas and focus on writing about narratives or imaginative experiences. Due to the focus on STAR test practice, many teachers are using packets of sample STAR tests to help their students learn or be prepared for the STAR test. And what I learned is that while many students find that it definitely helps, of course, to have a practice of the STAR test based on the structure of the actual test, many students are having a difficulty understanding the key concepts that are required to master for the STAR test. What I want to do with my proposal is I want to make it easier for the students to be able to understand certain concepts and not just think of it as a formulaic, this is what I need to do, I need to look at this sentence and I need to look at this word and that's the answer. I want them to be able to understand the concepts and build that foundation for them in English and language arts and be able to bring that with them into high school. I also talked with the teachers and gained their feedback, and in talking with them I learned that they approved of the idea and they gave me pointers to improve on the idea that I had proposed, in that I should implement more STAR related materials just because the district is very focused on making sure that the students are prepared for the STAR, but also include that element of focusing on concepts rather than just dishing out practice questions and passages, to make sure that students know what main idea is and they know what inferencing is and they can identify different types of grammar. So the proposal will provide more room for reflection and focus on the ability to master writing, and I will be submitting it to the FISD Administration Board in the hopes that parts of it will be implemented into the school board, or at least considered, and eventually improve writing skill and test scores. Now I want to talk about my final product. After I finished my original work, I decided that since FISD administrators are very busy people and they have a lot to manage and they see a lot of proposals and a lot of news and they have a lot to deal with every day, I decided that I wanted to do something that was on a much smaller scale, particularly in one class, in one course in Frisco High School. With the interviews that I've conducted in the creative writing class at Frisco High School, as well as teacher comments, I have decided to come up with a proposal to bring a more college-based curriculum into our creative writing classes. Since the TEKS of the creative writing class are very broad and allow for the rigidity of the structure to be a lot more flowing than a lot of other classes have, there can be many ways to implement more loose structure to where students are able to express their thoughts creatively. With my observations at UNT, I learned that students were able to write in any style that they preferred, and that the prompts were quite broad. However, they did focus on the students' ability to master writing. In my overview of the undergrad class, they had prompts such as describe a barn. And the barn, when one is describing the barn, it should be from the perspective of a person who had just lost their child, an elderly person who is returning to a childhood home, or a person who has just won the lottery and is leaving town. But the objective of the prompt is to describe the barn, and then you convey which perspective you are writing from, depending on how you describe the barn. And it is prompts like these that I want to bring into our creative writing class, to where students can express their creativity in how they choose to describe the barn, and how many different ways we see in each student to describe the barn, and how each student conveys a certain perspective. In my overview of the graduate class, it was a lot more analysis of each person's work, and why each person decided to write a certain scene, or why each person decided to start with this, why this syntax was used, why this word was used, why was this scene there, and why it wasn't. And there was a lot of critique, which is one of the main things that I want to bring into the creative writing classes here, where students are able to share their work with the class, and the class will either read their work, or the student will tell the story to the class, and the class is able to give feedback as to what they liked about the work and what they didn't like, and what they would like to see improved, what it could improve on, and how the author's use of language was well done. In working with my mentor, we were able to come up with a rough idea for a curriculum proposal, which we plan to improve on and eventually implement into the Frisco High School creative writing courses. The ultimate benefits, of course, will not only serve to help improve student writing skill, it will also help give students a look into what college could be like, since it's a lot more interactive and allows you to share with the class and give you a lot more experience in speech and taking criticism. Some specific points of the proposal are prompts that allow students to express an individual style, such as the one that I earlier explained about the barn, as well as having the freedom to write in poetry or prose in terms of following with a prompt but writing in one's own style. And they are able to have class readings where the class will be able to read their work out loud, and also class critiques where the class will focus on one student at a time, and the class will speak about that student's work and give feedback and talk about the different elements in the story, what sounded good and what may be able to use improvement. And this allows students to expand intellectually and explore their thinking capabilities. And it also increases their eloquence and their speech, especially since they will be expected to share their stories. However, it won't be something that is structured, since it'll be something that came from their mind, and it's something that's very imaginative, so it won't be as difficult or daunting to share with a certain group. And the class can be for anyone. Unlike ISM, which requires a lot of trust and responsibility, creative writing can provide this experience of college with this really loose structure for any student. Even if they're not entirely interested in creative writing, they're still getting that experience of being in a class that's really interactive and sharing their work and receiving the criticism. And regardless of whether they are really interested in creative writing, they will get that feedback and they will be able to improve their writing. In conclusion, for my personal development, I have definitely become a lot more confident in ISM this year, and it has become a lot easier for me to speak in front of people and give more polished presentations, especially in other classes in high school. I am able to prepare things a lot easier, and my work ethic has definitely improved. I am really adamant about making sure that I have a list of everything that I need to get done in terms of priority and in terms of how long or how difficult something may take me to do, and I almost always get something done as soon as I can, which is something that I definitely picked up on this year because of the deadlines in ISM and how you have to make sure that you keep responsibility for your deadlines. In my professional development, I have learned to dress more professionally, especially when I am going into interviews and when I am speaking with professionals and making connections, and it has helped me gain more connections with different professionals in all different fields, and I'm able
Students,
to
what a fantastic day to be outside. Please make your way out of the building unless you're under the direct supervision of a staff member. Those of you in the gym foyer, please exit the building. Thank you. Come back safe tomorrow.
As well as being able to communicate with professionals a lot more easily and a lot more comfortably, I am also able to understand a lot more about different fields and how I conduct myself as a professional, especially when I am doing things such as going to a camera store to print photos for my AP 2D Studio portfolio, and how I'm able to independently conduct myself with the professionals who are helping me out. I have also gained an understanding of other fields in ISM through the immersion of being in a class with students who are studying all different fields, and it has definitely helped me gain a better idea of what I want to do when I grow up and how that might relate to other fields. For the future, I have begun working on a novel with co-author Faith Smith called Zephyr, and this is the cover that we have designed. And the novel is a thriller novel, and it is about a government experiment who were testing these drugs on children, and they were wanting to see what the effects would be and if it would help the military. However, they were discovered and shut down, and years later one of the children who were sent into the foster homes after the experiment dissipated discovered that there was this secret organization that was covered up and it existed, and how it caused these medical side effects. And this character goes to find other people who were also a part of that experiment. And it is told from the perspective of that character, as well as a character who was a doctor who used to work in the organization, but he wasn't really aware of what the organization was trying to accomplish or what was actually happening. And his wife, who is the FBI agent who is investigating the missing persons and homicides related to the people that were involved in this experiment. And with my knowledge of literary agencies and how to prepare a manuscript appropriately, as well as my connections with different authors and people who have been published, as well as talking to people who have worked with literary agencies, as well as literary agents themselves, we have a goal to publish this book this summer. And if you are interested in reading any excerpts, I have some copies around. You can find them in front of my presentation board if you are interested in reading that. And next year in ISM, I hope